The Agulhas Current flows down the east coast of South Africa. It's the most powerful ocean current on the globe. In 1991, the Oceanus loses a fight against the current, 40-knot winds, 9-meter swell, poor maintenance, and bad decisions. Oceanus was a French-built and Greek-owned cruise ship. The ship was originally launched in July 1952 as the Jean Laborde in Four Chantiers de la Gironde in Bordeaux as the last of 4 sister ships constructed for Messageries Maritimes. Perhaps you can let me know in the comments how badly I've butchered those French names. It's 153 meters long, 20 meters at the beam, draws 7 meters below the waterline, and has a capacity of 550 passengers plus 250 crew. Its first charter as a passenger ship is the route between Marseille, Madagascar, and Mauritius. Over a period of more than 20 years, it undergoes several name changes, including Mykonai, Ancona, and Eastern Princess, before being registered in Piraeus in Greece as Oceanus in 1976. Originally built as an ocean-going passenger vessel, the Oceanus undergoes massive reconstruction before it begins to operate as a cruise liner for Epiroutiki Lines of Greece. Between 1988 and 1991, Epiroutiki Lines loses 2 vessels. Their flagship Pegasus catches fire and sinks in shallow water, and motor vessel Jupiter collides with a freight ship and sinks in 82 meters of water, taking 4 lives with it. In 1991, Oceanus is chartered by TFC Tours of Johannesburg in South Africa for an 8-month season. The ship is almost 40 years old and shows signs of wear and tear. There are several loose hull plates, which are the sheets of metal that form the outer hull of the ship. On a recent trip to Mozambique, the ship experiences problems with sewage water rising up through some showers and toilets. The repairs start by removing several faulty non-return valves from the sewage holding tanks. The ventilation pipe is also removed from the sewage tank, leaving a 10 centimeter hole between the generator room and the holding tank. The repairs are not finalized. The non-return valves and ventilation pipe are not replaced. At 1500 on the 3rd of August 1991, the Oceanus departs from East London in South Africa en route to Durban. Its departure time is delayed because of a bomb threat. Captain Yanis Avranis, a seasoned mariner with 20 years experience as an officer and 30 as a seaman, is at the helm. As the ship heads into 40-knot winds and confronts towering 9-meter swell, the sea conditions grow increasingly turbulent. The usual sail-away party with musicians and entertainers, Moss Hills and his wife Tracy, is scheduled to take place on deck. The rough seas force them to change the venue for the shelter inside the Four Seasons Lounge. Despite Moss, Tracy, and the ship's entertainment crew's best efforts to create a festive atmosphere, most passengers opt to stay in their cabins to ride out the storm. The storm intensifies as the evening wears on. During the first sitting of dinner, the waiters struggle to maintain their balance, making it difficult to carry food trays without spilling. Cutlery slides off the dining tables while the ship rolls in the swell and wind. Just what you want on an ocean cruise. Ships have an opening to the sea below the waterline called a sea chest. This allows the ship to draw ocean water to cool the engines and distribute to ballast tanks. The sea chest has sprung a leak. At 21:30 off the wild coast of the Transkei, there's a small explosion in the engine room. Then the ship loses power. The ship's engineer reports to Captain Avranis that water is breaching the hull, flooding the generator room, which has created a small explosion as the generator short circuits. Without power, the engines die and the ship begins to drift in the heavy seas. The water level continues to rise until it reaches the 10 centimeter hole in the bulkhead where the air vent pipe should be. Seawater breaches the bulkhead and fills the sewage tank. With the non-return valves in this holding tank removed for repairs, water travels up through the main drainage pipes. Showers, toilets, and waste disposal units connected to the system allow water to flow from the sea chest through the sewage holding tank and up into the cabins. The crew in the engine room escape the flooding compartment. In their panic, they don't close the lower deck bulkhead hatches, which is standard procedure during an emergency situation. With the engine snuffed, the ship loses any stability created from its momentum through the swell. As the ship rolls idle through the rough seas, waves slam against the deteriorating exterior hull plates. The crew don't sound the alarms, nor make any announcements to alert the passengers to the situation they're facing. Moss Hills, a musician from Zimbabwe, and his wife Tracy, along with their fellow entertainers, notice the ship rolling in a way that doesn't feel normal. The ship is listing to starboard. They decide to investigate. As they head below decks, they find water flooding through the cabins and into the passageways. The Oceanus is sinking. Lorraine Betts, the cruise director, tells them that the captain has given the order to the crew to abandon ship. Crew members make their way to the lifeboats and start to evacuate the ship. They take on board any passengers immediately available, but don't fill the lifeboats before making their escape. They don't even fill the lifeboats before cutting the lines. Moss and Tracy waste no time and start launching the remaining lifeboats with up to 90 passengers in each one. The lifeboat's engines don't start, and so they drift with the current, the wind, and the waves. As the ship lists further to starboard, it becomes too dangerous to continue launching lifeboats. Almost 220 people remain on board the sinking ship. Moss Hills and several passengers make their way up to the bridge to find crew members who can help with the evacuation. The bridge is unmanned. Moss uses the radio to broadcast a distress call. Captain Detmar on board the container ship Ned Lloyd Mauritius responds to the Mayday call. Moss explains the situation, that he's the guitarist on board and that the crew are not on the bridge. After a short pause to take in the staggering incompetence, Captain Detmar starts to give Moss information on how to handle the situation. He then broadcasts the coordinates of the Oceanus and requests ships in the vicinity to provide assistance and relays the situation to the South African authorities. The South African Navy and the South African Air Force dispatch 16 helicopters to assist with the search and rescue operation. These helicopters are tasked with airlifting the passengers and crew to the nearby settlements of The Haven and Hole in the Wall, approximately 6 miles south of Coffee Bay on the Wild Coast. Captain Detmar on the Ned Lloyd Mauritius deploys his lifeboats and crew to take passengers on board. The first helicopter to arrive lowers 2 Navy divers onto the deck of the Oceanus to help coordinate the evacuation. Captain Avranus is first in line. Navy diver Paul Wiley pushes him aside and tells him to wait until women, children, and elderly passengers are evacuated. Wiley then steps away to find an elderly passenger, and when he returns, Avranus has pushed the passengers aside, strapped himself in, and is being hoisted to safety. Among the 16 rescue helicopters are 13 South African Air Force Pumas, 9 of which are engaged in hoisting the 220 people off the deck of the sinking vessel, while the rest search the area for survivors. The rescue helicopters perform an aerial ballet, lifting passengers from the forward and aft decks. The helicopters take turns to load passengers, fly them to shore, and return to the ship. Cruise director Lorraine Betts ensures the elderly, women, and children receive priority. Entertainers Julian Butler, Moss Hills, Tracy Hills, and Robert Boltman are among the last 5 people to be winched from the deck of the sinking ship. All 581 people on board make it safely to shore during a 7-hour rescue operation. At 15:30 the following day, Oceanus starts to tilt over to one side and its stern rises up. The bow hits the sandy seabed about 90 meters deep. More than 60 meters of the stern stands above the water. Minutes later, the ship slowly slips beneath the waterline. The Oceanus comes to rest on its starboard side with its bow facing out to sea. Captain Avranus gets caught in the spotlight. Much like the captain of the Costa Concordia, Avranus leaves the ship while hundreds of passengers wait to be rescued, with only the ship's entertainers to assist in the evacuation. He defends his actions, claiming he left the ship early to organize the rescue efforts and then supervise the rescue from a helicopter. Avranis says the dead batteries of the crew's walkie-talkies are the cause of the communication obstacle.
When I order abandon the ship, doesn't matter what time I leave. Abandon is for everybody. If something they like to stay, they can stay.
Despite his explanation, the media portrays him as an example of unprofessional behavior while in command. In 1992, Captain Avranis and other officers are found guilty of negligence by a Greek board of inquiry for fleeing the ship without aiding the passengers during the crisis. Avranis doesn't do any jail time, and his employer, Epiratiki Lines, gives him command of a ferry until his retirement. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and would like to watch more videos from this channel without any ads, please consider joining our Patreon. The link is in the description. You can join for free or select a membership with benefits ranging from ad-free videos through to early access and live Q&A calls. I look forward to meeting you there.